the week was dominated. I know my attention was very focused upon a courtroom in the Twin Cities, watching for the outcome of the trial of Derek Chauvin for the murder of George Floyd. And there's nothing good you can say about it. The outcome wasn't good because there's nothing good about this. But the outcome was a step toward justice, not all the way toward justice, but a beginning of earning back the trust of people that there will be accountability in instances of police misconduct. So many people, particularly minorities, African Americans, people of color, wonder whether there's really accountability when there's misconduct, if it's a person of color who is the victim. The George Floyd case was just the latest in a string of tragedies that so often end with no accountability. But in this case, the jury's conviction on all three counts, the murder counts and the manslaughter count, demonstrate that the system can work, but we've got to do more. Last year, we had a brief moment in the summer where we contemplated Democratic and Republican police reform proposals. Rather than hammer it out in a bipartisan way in the Judiciary Committee, the then Republican majority decided to skip the committee and just do a snap vote on the floor on the Republican proposal. The Republican proposal had some good things in it, but omitted an awful lot of really good things. And we said, why don't you have a real legislative process? Why don't you, take it up in committee and try to combine the bills on an important issue, hate crimes or police reform? It shouldn't just be one party. We should try to find common cause. I'm happy to say that the Senate now is really kicking it into warp speed and looking both at the Tim Scott bill, which is a Republican bill, but then the George Floyd Police Reform Act, which is the Democratic bill that I co-sponsor, where Senator Cory Booker is at the helm of the bill on the Senate side. It's a comprehensive bill analyzing everything from immunity doctrines that have tended to shield police from the consequences of egregious misconduct to trying to demilitarize the police by limiting transfers of military equipment to the police, training standards, promotion standards, accreditation of police agencies. Why do we give federal funds to universities only if they're accredited, but we give federal funds to police departments whether or not they go through accreditation? The issues that I'm trying to promote in the bill are twofold. One, Don Beyer and I have a bill to make any settlement of a police misconduct claim public so that public officials, journalists, everyday citizens can know if there's big settlements that are being made. They need to know how their tax dollars are being spent and maybe demand of their elected officials that misconduct leading to these big settlements should be reformed. And I'm also working on a provision, not yet subject of legislation, but I'm working with the negotiators on the police reform bill to see if we can put limitations on the use of tear gas. Tear gas, I know from my armed services committee assignment, it's a weapon of war. It's a chemical weapon that's largely regulated by Geneva Chemical Weapons Conventions. If we're going to limit use of chemical weapons on the battlefield, we shouldn't allow indiscriminate use of these weapons in a domestic civilian context. And so I've offered to the negotiators of the bill some thoughts about how we may put appropriate limitations on the use of tear gas in domestic law enforcement. This is particularly important because tear gas causes respiratory challenges, and there's a much disproportionate impact of respiratory disease in minority communities and urban communities. Similarly, in a pandemic whose primary serious health consequence has been impaired respiratory functioning, indiscriminate use of tear gas also poses some unacceptable health risks. So I'm hoping as we move forward, we might be able to get some better rules about use of tear gas in domestic law enforcement included in these bills.